Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Bream Fishing Project. And here we are on a Thursday. How exciting is that? But today we are reviewing the Bream Master South Australia Glenelg River round, which was held in Victoria. Who knew? But it was also a Hobie qualifying round. Anyway, this was run and won on March 22 and 23 of 2025. And it's a cracking little round. Really, really close results. Some great stories. I think you're going to enjoy it. Let's roll the intros and get into it. Here we go.
Welcome to the Bream Fishing Project. This is where you need to be every Tuesday to find out all the latest tips and tricks to help you target bream on lures. You'll get to hear from some of Australia's elite bream competition anglers and see how they were able to achieve their results in competitions around the country. Now, here's your host, the 2019 Hobie Kayak Fishing World Champion, Andrew Deeth.
All right. And this is a big week. We got a lot going on this week. I should have released the monthly report for May, which I've done with Mr. Brett Geddes, and that's available on YouTube and obviously the normal places. It's designed probably a little bit more as a visual one. We talk about some stuff and show some things, but if you can only listen to it via podcast, I guess that's okay. Anyway, the point of that was it's a big week. We've got the Australian Open, which will be concluding today. So if you've not tuned in and had a look at that, definitely jump on that. It's game day. All right. We've also started in the collective. We've started the latest challenge, which is the Crabs and Mussels Challenge. So as a group, we're getting together and working out how to use these more effectively, pooling our knowledge, and hopefully everyone wins. So if you want to be part of that, brimfishingproject.supercast.com. And at the moment, Force Lures has given us a great pack of stuff we're going to give away to members who join over the next 6 weeks. And for the existing members, we've got a pack there as well. And you have to join into the collective to find out how to get involved in that one. All right. What I might do is I think we're going to get straight into it. This was a great round. I'm going to run through some of the top 5 results because this was incredibly close. As a Hobie qualifier, quite important as well. All right. So in terms of the statistics, we've got 9 in the fish activity wheel. Major bite period at 5:33 through to 8:03. Minor bite period at 2:02 through to 3:32. Low tide was at 9:14 a.m. at 0.14, running up to a high tide at 1:54 p.m. at 0.72. On the Sunday, we backed it up with 13 in the fish activity wheel, so it's still really low. Major bite period was at 6:26 a.m. through to 8:56, with a low tide at 9:21 a.m. and a high tide at 12:57 a.m. Work that out. Okay, I'm going to start that bit again. I'm just going to do all the bite periods and stuff from the start because I've just messed it up the whole way. All right, so the bite periods in this one was confusing for me. I'll try to get this right. So in the fish activity wheel, we had 9 on the Saturday, with a major bite period at 5:33 through to 8:03. Minor bite period at 2:02 through to 3:32. So just outside the session there, but very close. Low tide was at 9:14 a.m. at 0.14 with a high tide at 1:54 at 0.72. On the Sunday, we had 13 in the fish activity wheel, so really low. Major bite period at 6:26 through to 8:56. Low tide was at 9:21, and that was coming down, and that was at 0.17, coming down from a high tide at 12:57 a.m. So 1 o'clock in the morning at 0.74. And they were the only 2 tides for the day. So that's why it was very confusing for me. Anyway, let's run through a couple of the results here. We'll go from 5th place. So Sean Dalman, who has been doing really well this year, part of the collective, good to see him. He got 4.4 kilos for his 6 fish. Corey Gallagher in 4th place got 4.47 for his 6 fish. Sean Pearson, ending up in 3rd place, got 4.48. So just 10 grams more, but came 3rd on count back from Dylan Pace, who got 4.48, but had the bigger bag is usually how it works. So he had a biggest bag of 2.45. And then winning it was Kobe Rothel, who was 500 grams in front. So solid win there. But from 2nd to 5th, 2nd to 6th actually, was 50 grams. So incredibly close, tight composition. It would have been a great weigh in, I'm sure. All right. Last thing before we move on is the big brim went to Brad Clark at 1.08. So well done, Brad. And yeah, let's get into the angler interviews. All right. So first up in 3rd place, we have an angler dropping 3 fish for 2.18. backing it up on the Sunday with another 3 fish for 2.26, giving him 6 fish for 4.44 in third place on Countback. We have Sean Pearson. Welcome back to the show, mate.
No worries. How you going, Andrew?
Mate, you've really secured third spot in the last couple of comps, so you've done quite well.
Yeah, I seem to be having a run of thirds, yeah.
Yeah, no, which is good. I'd take third every time.
Yeah, I don't mind third. Yeah, as long as I'm in the top 3, I'm pretty happy, yeah. Good.
Exactly. Well, all in all, mate, it must have been a good round, but tell us, did you get a chance to get down there and have a bit of a pre-shoot, have a look around?
No, the last time I was there was the Big Bream. That was the last time I was down Glenelg River.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so was that their grand final? Yeah, I think it was.
Yeah, that was the grand final, yeah.
Yeah, very good. All right. Well, then let's jump straight into competition day. Tell us a bit about how you caught your fish, what you thought you were going to do, and how they ended up ended up in the boat.
Well, first up, like on the pre-fish, I went downstream and found fish. Like there was fish everywhere type thing. So and I was catching them all in the shallows on Bent Minnow. So yeah, day one, I just thought, oh yeah, I'll just go down there and do the same thing again. Yeah, but the first day was a bit quieter. Yeah, and they weren't really hitting the bents like they were on the practice. So yeah, I just had to keep like searching round. And then I just come across this deeper hole down the front near the beach, and yeah, the fish were all off the flat and sitting in this deep hole.
Right.
Yeah.
So they gone from a surface bite on practice day through to a deep bite the next day, or a deeper bite.
Yeah, it wasn't a very big hole, but yeah, it was a couple of meters deep. And when just as I paddled through there, I could see a lot of fish in there swimming around. So I just chucked on a 2.5-inch grub on a 1/20th, I think it was. Threw it in there and just let it sink, and yeah, then tick, bang, yeah. Just let it sink slow. Yeah, just wait for the tick, and yeah. So I caught probably 10 fish in there. And then I thought, got my bag. I thought I'll leave that till tomorrow. And then that was probably 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock. So yeah, I got out of there, then just went back on the flats, mucking around with the bents. Yeah, caught a few more, but nothing that I could upgrade really. Yeah, all the fish down there are about 700 grams. So
yeah,
got my bag and just finished the day off just floating around on the flats. Yeah, looking for fish with the bent minnow. Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So basically you got your fish early on the grubs and then caught some fish later, but your bag, yeah, pretty much 700 gram fish, which was pretty good. Like in terms of the comp, I think I've got you down as 7th overnight, but definitely within striking.
Yeah, I was pretty happy with that. Yeah, when I saw that, I thought, yeah, this is all right.
Yeah, definitely in touch.
Yeah.
All right. So with the grub, so you're on a 1/12. What colour grub were you running?
I was on 1/20th, and I was just using bloodworm.
Bloodworm. Okay. Interesting.
Yeah, that's my favourite colour for grubs, yeah.
Definitely. Well, so you're in 7th place overnight. Tell us how Sunday played out for you.
Sunday, I thought, I'll just go down the front and do the same thing again. Yeah, just went down there, fished a little bit down on the way down on bents, nothing really happening. So when I could see the hole where I wanted to go, and there was some bait fish fishing in there. So I thought, that might have wrecked that. But
yeah, right.
Yeah, he didn't hang around. And so I went down to the hole and yeah, see a few fish. Yeah, same thing. Chucked the grub in. Yeah, caught my 5 fish pretty quick. Yeah, then I thought, well, it was only about 9 o'clock. I thought, well, these are all 700 grams fish. It looks like bigger fish are coming back up further up the river. So I just left the hole and went back, worked my way across some flats. Still couldn't find anything bigger. Then I went up to Ox. There's a Ox Lake there, I think it's called. I just went into Ox Lake when there was probably 10 kayakers in there. So I just paddled right across the other side of the Ox Lake, and the wind was blowing. So I just drifted across the lake, chucking my bent minnow out in front of me, and yeah, nothing. And then I could see the sand change colour. As soon as I got to where that sand changed colour, yeah, bang, straight away. Yeah, started catching fish again there, and they were all like, yeah, bigger fish, a couple of 100 grams bigger fish. So I ended up upgrading all my bag there again. Yeah, so that's why I got a slightly bigger bag on day 2.
Yeah, that's right. And it's interesting because your bag, obviously you're in 3rd place, your bag was competitive. It looks like overall that was about the size of the fish with, I think Brad Clark got a bigger one at 1.08. but most of the fish were around that 7 or maybe 800 grams. Does that seem?
Yeah. The ones down the front were a bit smaller. On pre-fish there, I found some bigger ones there, but then on day one, I couldn't find them again. Yeah, then I noticed everyone was catching slightly bigger ones up further. That's why I thought, well, once I got my bag, I'll head up in the lake or whatever and have a sniff around up there. And yeah, found a good spot there.
Wow. And you said one thing that I was thinking, you said from pre-fish, you'd gone from surface to, and then it ended up being a bit more of a deep bite, and then maybe a couple back on the back end of day 2. But is there any reason you think why the pattern changed? Like, was there a weather change or anything that might have spurred that on?
I think there was a different wind on day 2. The wind was in a different direction.
Mm.
Yeah, first thing in the morning, they wouldn't bite the surface lures. But then as the day got on, like around after 12, they started going back on them.
Yeah.
Yeah, I knew I could get a bag in that little hole. So I just went there grubbing, and thought, oh, well, time to upgrade. So went for a bit of a look. I managed to upgrade the whole bag, so I was pretty happy with that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Hindsight, I should have done that on day 1
Maybe.
as well, but never mind.
Maybe. I was going to say you didn't need much more to jump up at least one place and, a decent upgrade into first. So
Yeah. I don't think I would have found a fish that would have beat Kobe's fish, but
yeah.
I could have definitely got easy second, but I should have moved, but never mind.
Never mind. I was going to say with Dylan on the same weight, mate, you just needed one upgrade and you were there.
Yeah. Well, every time I was catching a fish, I was waiting and weeding out the slightly lighter one, kept looking for the heavier fish. Yeah, so that's what that was my plan. That's what I was doing.
Yeah. I mean, all in all, it sounds like it was a pretty decent comp for you. You caught a few fish and
heck yeah.
Got a good result. So
yeah, I would have caught at least 20 plus fish every day, and not only a couple of undersized ones. The rest of them were all pretty good.
Yeah, a bit of surface and bit of grub work, and you're done.
Yeah, no, it's good weekend.
Very good. All right. Well, what lines and leaders were you running for the comp?
When I was grubbing, I just used 2 pounds straight through 2 pounds.
That's right. Forgot.
Yeah, I love the 2 pound. Yeah, then on the surface, I think it's like 6 pound braid with the 8 pound leader.
Okay. Wow. They're quite different. Like very different. Like 2 pound is as finesse as it gets really. And then 8 pound, you got a heap of pulling power.
The 2 pound, you just got to feel that tick and give it a bit of a whack. So you're not going to bust off and then just let it do its thing and slowly, wind it in. But like on the bents, I like to, once they hit, I like to give them a good whack and keep plenty of pressure on them. So that's why I go the braid on the bents.
Yeah.
I would never use 2 pound on the bent minnows.
No, it's too expensive, man. And I don't think you need to.
No, it works good. Yeah. I like a bit more, to pull a bit more on the bent. So it's good.
Oh, there you go. All right, mate. I reckon that's a pretty good account of things. For third place, what did you get to take home?
Got a heap of Hobie stuff, bait junkie lures, hurricane lures, got soft plastics and lures, some jig heads, and there's some cash too, but that's coming. I don't know how much that is. Okay.
That's a surprise.
Yeah. I gave him my BSB last night, so nothing's turned up yet, so I'm not sure.
Fair enough. Oh, either way, it's got to be pretty good.
Yeah.
All right. Last thing before we shoot off, is there anyone you want to give a shout out to or say thank you to? Yeah,
just the boys that run it. I think we need people like that. We want to run competitions. Yeah, so I think just to them and all the people that throw their bloody tackle in as prizes and stuff. So yeah, that's it.
Very good. All right, mate. Well, congratulations, mate. We've had a couple of chats recently, so I appreciate you coming on. And good luck for the rest of the season. Maybe we can jump back on with your boys again.
Yeah, well, the VIC Brims are coming up, so they're keen. They're busting out. So if I brought them a kayak, bloody kayak fishing too. So
fair enough. Oh well, hey, how old? What's the oldest one?
He's 15 now.
15. I think you got to be 16 for the Hobies.
Oh, do you have to be 16? Oh, yeah.
I'd have to check, but I think you've got to be 16. But when he turns 16, someone will find him a kayak.
Yeah. Oh, he's looking for one. Yeah, it's only October and he turns 16 anyway, so.
Oh, it's not far away. Oh, time to get one, get some practice in.
Yeah, that's it.
Very good.
Secure.
All right, Sean, mate. Once again, pleasure to speak. I will talk to you next time.
All right, no worries. Good on you. Thanks for the call, Andrew.
Thanks, mate. In second place, we have an angler out of Victoria dropping 3 fish for 2.03, backing it up on the Sunday with a bigger bag of 2.445 kilos and giving him 6 fish with a total of 4.48. And second place, I'd like to welcome back to the Bream Fishing Project, Dylan Pace. Welcome back, mate.
Thanks, Daisy. It's nice to know I make it on here. I've obviously done something right over the weekend. So thanks for having me.
You have done something right. There's 2 seasons in a row where you've been okay at the start of the front of the season, or done well.
Well, like Nelson's been kind the last 2 years. I got the win last year, so happy to give it to Kobe this time around.
Fair enough. And I think, didn't I interview you for Bream River as well last year in the Hobies?
Oh, Swan River? And there might have been another one as well.
Yeah, okay. I just remember at the start of the season, you were one of the ones at the top for Angler of the Year, I think.
Yeah, definitely was. No, I think Ben was like 9th last year. It was a fantastic weekend, but just didn't quite find the right bites in the end.
Yeah.
But still a good result.
Absolutely. In a big field? Absolutely. All right. Well, mate, tell us all about it, mate. Did you get out and have a bit of a pre-fish leading into the comp?
So not say prior to the pre-fish ban, like the last time I had fished Nelson was certainly last year at the comp there. So I was very eager to get down and see how the river had been performing. So leading up to it, like the river had been open, and I had word from a few local friends down that way, expect it to be open, expect it to be tidal. But then it was funny looking through, say, the community groups. I think it was only 2 days before the comp, bam, river's closed. So that's certainly made my plans for pre-fish a lot more concise, because I find if the mouth at Nelson is closed, generally, personally, I have not been able to find many big fish down there, and the bite times are inconsistent. So when I heard that, I was thinking, going to go upriver, I'm going to play it safe, stick to what I know, and just trial things that have done well in the past. What I ended up fishing, I launched at Donovan's Landing that morning. I wasn't too concerned whether I went up or down. I sort of floated around there, ended up going a couple of kilometres down, doubled back, and probably went far too, like a long way upriver. I reckon I ended up doing about 15 kilometres above Donovan's because I got a bit carried away.
Wow.
The river up there was a lot more clearer compared to last year and the previous years. You could see the bottom clearly in some areas, up to about a metre and a half. So it was an aquarium, but what I was seeing was every single wall was holding fish. Reed banks were pretty quiet, but the main thing being, if anyone's familiar with Nelson, you've got these big, beautiful limestone cliffs down there, and they cascade into the water. You've got several different varieties. You've got walls that have a really big crumbly boulders that sort of have a tapering edge, and then you've got big sheer walls, some of which drop down 5 or 6 metres right into the water. So I found as long as there was reef and rock, you had bream on everything. There was not a part of that system I didn't find bulk numbers of fish that I'd be pretty happy to catch on the comp days.
Right. And look, while you were talking there, I just had a look back at the river because I'm obviously not familiar with it. Donovan's is a fair way up. So if you went past that, that's a hike.
Yeah. I have no idea where I ended up, but it would have been a long, long way if you're having a look at maps now above Princess Margaret Rove's caves.
Wow, that's all I can say. You must have had sore legs. Mate.
No, I just ended up just cruising with the wind, and it was one of those days where, like, I should talk about how the fish were behaving as well, but they were sort of, sometimes I'd be a little bit fussy on a bank, but if you found, say, a little bit of breeze or a little bit of current, and again, like I think I spoke about that last year, how there wasn't a lot of current, but when you found it, you found feeding fish. And this was a pattern over the weekend where you would never replicate a pattern the day, say, from a prior session on that day. So I had to always move around and find walls where the current was there, because sometimes you'd find stagnant water, literally just with all sorts of leaves and twigs not even moving. And then the second you had even like 3 knots of breeze, just enough to move that surface water, it'd create enough flow just to get fish feeding, get them moving, get them interested. So I sort of just went above. Reason being I went so far up was more so not to just burn my spots down low, because the majority of the fishing over the 2 tournament days I spent in the Taylor's Strait section of the river. So I was just trying to see upriver where I wouldn't go, what pattern those fish would like. And I found, for instance, edges with bent minnows on pre-fish was the way to get the big bites. Like I got a lot of interest from big fish. Did manage to sting a couple too, about to that sort of 1 to 1.15 kilos. But
wow,
we'll talk about why those fish kind of vanished on the Saturday anyway. But the one standout technique, of course, Nelson being Nelson, Glenelg River, that's probably going to come up in most people's interview in this round.
Yeah.
And as it always will here, whether you're doing a VIC bream, whatever it may be, it's just the outback bream baits just always finds those fish when they're just sitting that little bit deeper.
All right, mate, I'm dying to get into it. Yeah, tell us about how the day started for you on Saturday.
So Saturday morning straight away was a decent pedal, but I was very open to where I was wanting to start. So in my mind, I didn't really have a set wall or a set sort of area. So I was just like, I just want to charge ahead of the pack, get to some water that seems reasonably fresh. And I was like, the second I see something with a little bit of current on it, that's where I'll head to. Now, unfortunately, we did have, well, it's just part of the day, isn't it? But there was another competition on at the time. So there was an answer comp. So that light line class fishos, there was probably about 15, 20 boats, and they were buzzing around the river a lot. And the one thing Nelson hates is boat traffic. So a lot of the edges I liked that were clear turned quite dirty.
Right.
And it was a grind of a day. So I ended up finding myself at Dry Creek before I even had a hit. So I started fishing in Taylor's Strait, ended up at Dry Creek. And by this stage, from memory, I think it was not just after 9:30 until I had my first fish in the well. And it was a decent fish, just throwing a muss on a very deep wall.
Yeah.
It was, from memory, about a 36 tip. And when that came, I was like, here we go. It's going to happen from here. I ended up probably 3 casts later catching one that was like 29 to the millimetre.
Right.
So that was like straight in the well, but I was like, that is not going to cut it at the end of the day. If that's still in there, something's gone wrong. From here on, terrible day, all downhill. We did not get wind, so there was hardly any current. I only found one bank that had a bit of flow on it. So I thought, all right, turn around, grabbed my 3-pound straight through setup, and I was like, I'm just going to have to try tough it out with a little outback bream and bait muss and see if I can just finesse a bite. That came quick. So I found this nice big boulder, pitched in, lures sinks down, and I just see that line sort of stop prematurely to when it should hit the bottom. So I'm like, bingo, here we go, come up tight. Really nice fish, about 1 kilo, and then it just swam like a metre to the left, went past the stick, left the lure in the stick, and the fish just kept going.
Oh.
So had a good giggle at that, and I was like, what do you do?
Yep.
That's never going to happen. So continued on.
Okay.
I went a fair bit further upstream after that, and it got to the point where the further I went, the more bait fishing boats I was finding, the dirtier those edges were becoming, and I was like, I'm burning time. I need to leave.
Yeah.
So bailed downriver quite a fair way, well back below the Victorian border by this point.
Okay.
And I bumped into Kobe, and Kobe's like, oh man, they're going off. I've had a really good session. And I'm like, it's opposite day for me. And he's just like, here. And he just chucked me a gulp minnow. So I put a gulp minnow on, thrown that out, lost a really, really good fish on it straight away, and was feeling the tension after that. So I just went back to a muss. Fished that muss for probably about 5 casts and ended up getting a 38.5 tip in the well. So with those 3 in at that point, I was like, at the end of the day, there's 3 in the well.
Yep.
More like 2.5 because one of them might not even make it legal. So
okay.
I just ended up bailing right downriver. At this point, it didn't even hook another fish, and I only had those 3 legal bites. And I went back down to a wall near Simpson's Landing that seems every single time I've ever fished the Glenelg for the last, 15 years, this wall, it's a never fail spot. Just rocked up to it, pitched in 1 cast, put a muss in and got a 33 tip. And I was like, all right, that's it. And back to the launch I went.
Okay. Wow. So a lot of kilometres on the day, and yeah, a little bit of heartbreak. The one that you dropped.
A little bit.
Yeah, you reckon you left a kilo swimming around. Yeah, and he posted your lure on a stick, which is a pretty cool story.
Yeah. It was a funny one. I think that'll live in my mind for a bit. But yeah, ones like that, they're never coming. It's good, just a good laugh at the end of the day.
Yeah. I mean, this is true. All right. Where were you overnight? You remember?
So overnight, that left me 11th. And yeah, I think because I had 2.03 kilos for 11th. And at the end of the day, that system does have some good fish. So I knew it was so possible if I catch, around that 2.4 to 3 kilos, like that could throw me up the leaderboard. So I was like, well, it's still worth taking it seriously, giving it a good shot.
Yeah.
And I was in the right zone. Like I'd lost 2 very good bites on the Saturday, caught plenty of good fish up there on the Friday. So I was thinking, there's no point going down low. Like I knew the front where most anglers were fishing, it was a fish fest down there. Most dudes were saying between 15 and 30, even 40 fish, eating bent minnows and jerk baits. And to hear that and go the other way is pretty hard to do. But I just knew those right fish were in the zone. So I stuck to my guns and went back up there.
Okay.
And yeah, it was a totally different day, which is fantastic.
And no, what was it? The answer guys out in the water on day 2?
No, there would have been, I reckon, all day I saw 3 boats on that Sunday. So, that's fine. Not too much pressure, not too many wakes stirring up banks or pushing fish off edges.
Yeah, 100%. All right. Tell us how your day went. How'd you go about getting them?
So day 2, as I said just then, totally different day. I had a bank in mind on where I wanted to start. And pretty much it was sort of around that area near the border up towards Donovan's. And as I'm pedaling up straight away, I just see one big fish flashing on the edge. At this point, I was doing 7.5 kilometres. So grabbed the rod from behind me, threw it just in front, managed to pick up the slack at the second this fish came out and just clunked to plastic. So literally as I was going up, I had a 37 centimetre fish in the well, and that just set the precedent for the day. So after that, I fished half of the wall for not another hit. And I was like, oh yeah, that's going to be a grind again. But I had a bank I didn't hit on the Saturday that fished quite well. So I was mostly fishing pretty much all day, just flick baits, just 2.5, 3-inch flick baits, various brands. For me, the Munro's ones stuck out, and just fishing in them unweighted. So I rocked up to a really nice mud flat that I just always tend to find a few bag fillers on. And within the first cast on that, I got a good hit, threw in again, got a 37.5 tipper. And I was like, all right, that's a good start.
Yeah.
And within the next probably 20 metres, I had a full bag of 37 tips. So that was the start I was kind of looking for.
Yeah.
Rounded a few corners, and then I noticed a lot of fish again sitting really tight on the walls, and just fishing that same tactic of unweighted plastics. Even in the glass calm conditions, it was just fish every couple of casts. But the funny thing being, nearly every single fish in that part of the river was 37, and you might get a 37.5, but some of them would weigh quite light. Some were weighing 600 grams, and you'd get one that might be 720, 730, and you just had to get tiny little upgrades. But then I ended up clunking one that was just under 40 tip and went 910. So that kind of cemented a slightly better bag. And throughout the day, it was just moving around. Every wall you fished, you catch fish off. But it was funny trying to replicate other patterns. They were a little quiet on bent minnows, which they were all over on pre-fish.
Yeah.
The muss I really struggled on day 2 with, but just fishing unweighted plastics was the go. And I think the reason being, like anyone who this weekend would have seen, you had clouds of white bait and small anchovies throughout the system. So a lot of them were sitting in the middle of the river, but on day 2, on that Sunday, they pushed in really tight to the bank and just provided obviously a really easy hunting opportunity for bream. So just capitalising on that quick little change really turned the day around. And what happened in the afternoon, that wind picked up a lot. And it was sort of, I was chatting to Mitch about this. What ended up happening was those bigger fish that had been sitting deep, you could see them on the sounder in 3 to 5 metres all weekend. They ended up pushing up right shallow. And as we were all pedalling back down through Taylor's Strait and Simpson's Landing, you could just see big dinner plates flashing on the edge. And it was that classic thing of, if only we had another hour. But it wasn't needed at the end of the day. Got a good bag, ended up coming in second. So cannot complain there.
No, definitely an improvement on day 2, obviously. Tell us, with your plastics, was it just a matter of just pitching in tight to the shore and then twitching it back, or how'd that look?
Yeah, as tight as you physically can. So for anyone who doesn't know Nelson or the Glenelg River, no matter, as long as you've got those limestone edges, you have multiple different drops. Each drop is usually quite undercut. So you've got your first or your primary drop right close to the edge, and that's normally right at the base of the wall, and that can undercut sometimes a couple of metres. So if you can sort of sweep your plastic down, get it to even drift underneath, there's always bream there. And normally, depending on the type of the wall, on average, you might have a drop that's about 1 to 2 metres lower. And sometimes I would cast on that drop and let it sink over the edge, and quite often you'd pick them up. But that's that sort of zone. If they're sitting on that, usually I find the muss or a crab is a more appropriate lure.
Yeah. Okay. What about on the Sunday? What about losing big fish? Did you lose any ones that made a difference?
On the Sunday, I was very, very lucky. I did not lose any bites that would count for anything, unlike the Saturday where I was just very gumpy and unlucky, as we were chatting before.
All right. So, mate, tell me about lines and leaders for the competition. What were you running?
Easy. So I kept this very simple. Like for Nelson, usually not the biggest fan of running straight through. So although recently everywhere else in the state I tend to go to it, pretty much just 0.6, 0.8 braid. I personally run Saltiga 12. I have for years and find that is a just very reliable braid for me.
Sure.
Leader-wise, again, I kept it pretty simple, mostly for anything muss. Yeah, for like bents, muss. I was even throwing Daiwa Kodachis a little bit as well. I was just running all 6 pound in the YGK Ultralos. Again, I think I've spoken about it with you before. I just find that is the most reliable fluorocarbon I've personally come across.
Yeah, okay.
All up. And with the unweighted plastics, or even when I was fishing, say, bait junkie flicks and all of that off the edge a bit deeper, just 4 pound. Like the fish are angry. Like if you speak to anyone who fishes that system, they will fight hard. But the great thing is most of the weekend, if you hooked a fish, it might run up the wall, but most of the time it would run to deep water, which is away from the wall. So it was sort of a recipe for success there.
Yeah, it seems like a bit of a pattern there.
Yeah, I think like all weekend I would have been busted off. I got busted off by an okay fish on the Sunday. I don't think it was anything special, but I reckon that was literally the only fish that physically snapped me off.
Sure.
For the competition days anyway.
Yeah, okay. Well, mate, all in all sounds, apart from losing a big fish, it sounds like a pretty good couple of days on the water.
Oh, it always is down that way. It's picturesque. There's always something happening. And even if the brim are crap, you're normally finding a mulloway or a perch or 3,000 little salmon to keep you occupied as well.
Fair enough. Mate, for coming in second place, what did you get to take home?
So I got a nice big core flute board, which gets a spot in the fishing room.
Yep.
So that has joined the rest with a bit of pride there. It's probably always one of my favourite things to take away from the weekend. I got one of the Hobie, what do you call them, like cooler bags that sit on the front of the AC kayaks.
Oh, yeah.
So I can't wait to fill that with whiting and squid once that weather cools off a bit.
Yeah,
do something a little bit different to the brim.
Very
and
nice.
All sorts of sponsor products as well. So it was Daiwa products, Outback Brim baits, Hurricane gear, just lots of gear that's going to get thrown, which I'm guessing most anglers really do appreciate. So I was even having a look before the comp and I was like, I really need to get some bloodworm, bait junkie, risky critters and bits and pieces. And what was in that pack? A packet of those.
Beautiful.
So I was very happy. That'll save a trip down to the tackle shop. There was a cash prize as well. I think Lee sent me an email this morning for bank account details. So I'll find out when I find out how much money that is. But to take away a few cents to cover the weekend's costs will be good. So happy days.
100%. Well, there you go, mate. Mate, this has been a great chat. So the last thing I want to do before we shoot off is there anyone you want to give a shout out to or say thank you to?
Oh, of course, mainly just the BMSA guys. All of them, just putting on that comp's fantastic. And thanks so much to Hobie for supporting them as well. It just gives us a bit of an opportunity to give back to those guys. They're always travelling to the ends of the earth to travel to New South Wales and Victoria and round. So I feel pretty happy to always support them. And any opportunity to get down west, I'm always going to take. Big thanks to Miller Rods as well. They've all been behind me for the last year now, and I've been using their rods for, I think, coming up to 6 or 7 years and cannot fault them. And it's always nice to have a quiver that's going to back me up. And there's always a rod for every single application. And of course, my partner, Ali, she's always putting up with me vanishing at the last moment to go fish some strange bite that someone's invited me to, or vanishing it a week to go fish Gippsland. And yeah, it's always very, very good to have that person backing me up there.
How good is that? Mate, one thing on the sponsors I want to move back to is the Miller rods. If you can only have one rod and you're going fishing, what are you taking? One rod.
Don't do that to me.
Come on.
Oh, man. If I could only have one and one only, it'd have to be a Twitch Freak, I think.
Well,
it's just such a versatile stick. It's got enough backbone to rip fish off structure. It can work a plastic really well, but in terms of fishing hards with, say, like fine gauge trebles, it is the best in the business. Nothing does it quite like it. That taper, the multi-loading blank, I just can't pass it up.
Well, there you go. Perfect.
If you buy one, you'll buy more. Be warned.
Very good. All right, Dylan. As always, mate, great to chat. And I will, I'm sure I'll see you the next round or have a talk again.
No doubt. Thanks, Beathy.
Thanks, mate. And finally, in third place, we have an angler dropping 3 fish on the Saturday for 2.60 kilos, 3 fish on the Sunday for 2.44, giving him just over 5 kilos for 6 fish for 5.04. I have Hobie Rothel. Welcome to the show, mate.
It's good to be here. Haven't done many of these, so it's good to get on.
Yes, but like I said to you before we hit record, I've kind of been watching your socials for a few years, watching pictures of Big Bream in particular. It certainly caught my attention.
Yeah, being in close proximity to the river, quick arvo sessions definitely not off the cards. So there's always lots of content getting around.
Definitely. I like the thought of afternoon sessions after work. Anyway, mate, tell us, before the comp or in pre-fish, when did you get down there and have a look around and sort of formulate a plan?
Yeah, I did. So, yeah, luckily enough, as I said, I was a bit of a local. So I got down a couple of weeks before, 3 weeks before, I think it was. And it was actually with Lee as well, who fished it. But we're on separate boats. And I fished upriver and it wasn't that great. Seen a lot of fish, but it wasn't that great. And, yeah, I went down the front of the system and found a stack load of fish in a couple of foot of water. And I thought to myself, yep, this is it. Got a couple of really nice ones. And, yeah, I thought that was going to be it. Okay.
All right. And then that obviously changed a little bit.
Yeah. Come pre-fish day, all that changed for me. It sort of it didn't turn itself on its head, but the quality did, that's for sure.
Yeah, right. Rolling into the Saturday, give us a bit of an idea of how you went about catching your fish and, did you get them early or late or how'd that look?
So I started, for starters, there was only like 4 kayaks that went upriver. So I was pretty happy about that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so I started, I was probably 3 or 4 Ks from the launch upriver. I think within the first 10 casts, I had a 29 tipper and a 40 tipper. So I was pretty happy with that.
Good start.
That was a very good start. And then fished a couple other banks for nothing. And I went up to this area that I knew it would hold fish. It always does. It's just these real steep rock walls that sort of have like a metre odd drop in the water before it hits the bottom with a nice undercut bank. So there's generally always fish there, and pretty much rolled up to that and got I think it was a 38 to finish the bag. And then from then, yeah, it was probably constant fish.
Nice.
Fish every sort of 15 minutes for me, I reckon, throughout the day, all coming on the mussel.
Okay, that surprised me. We hadn't spoken about it. I thought you'd be on plastics, but no, the mussel was your bait of choice.
Normally I do fish a lot of plastics in there, predominantly because there is so much bait in there at the moment as well, like so much white bait and blue bait. So
with the mussel, what were you running? Were you running heavy or light, black, or what one were you running?
I think it's the OG, just a normal heavy mussel, either in black or black and gold.
Yeah.
For some reason, I don't go much on the blue and black in there. They just seem to, I don't know, I just don't like it. I know other guys that fish it, but they catch fish, but I just can't seem to get them. But yeah, blue and black, not blue and black, sorry, black and gold, and yeah, standard black was my standout. Okay.
How'd you target them? Were you like pitching them in tight to the bank and sort of hopping them down, or was it what did it look like?
Yeah, so they were super tight. Actually, I forgot to mention the mouth had blocked up within the week of the comp, I reckon, too. So the water was up probably a foot more than normally what it is already. It filled up quite quickly. But that meant, yeah, fish were super tight on the undercut banks.
Yeah.
On that rocky, shaly stuff, they were only about a foot of water. And up on the undercuts, you could see them up flashing underneath, eating all the coral and all that sort of stuff. And with the mussel, I normally fish it kind of like a plastic, but just real slow, like sort of shaking it, hopping it, let it sit on the bottom for 5-10 seconds and then go again. But lately, in particular, they've just been wanting it dragged ever so slightly over the bottom.
Okay.
I don't know whether it imitates a crab or not. I don't know. But, yeah, you'd sort of drag it and you sort of like it'd come tight on a rock, then you sort of pop it off the rock and normally one would eat it then, or, yeah, you just continue to drag it. And what I found too, actually, they would tap it 4 or 5 times before they actually found hooks.
Right. Okay.
So, yeah, I don't know whether it's rolled over enough and they've just pecked where the hooks are, or I'm not too sure. But, yeah, they weren't fully committing to it, but I was getting them in the end.
Yeah, okay. In terms of hookups, were they really getting it, or were they just basically pinned in the lip, or how'd that look?
Pretty much pinned in the lip, yeah. I wasn't using any scent. I probably should have, but they just, yeah. Some of them, if I ate it on the drop, which was very rarely, but if I did, it'd be a good hookup. But
yeah,
other than that, yeah, it'd just be one treble in their mouth pretty much.
Yeah, just light.
Yeah.
Okay. And throughout the day, did you drop any or miss any that you went, oh, that was a good one?
Not really. I was talking to Dylan Pace, and, he had a couple of big bites and lost them, but I never really, sometimes hook that, you just know it's a big fish, but I never really got that. I never really lost any as such, pulled hooks or anything like that on day one in particular, but yeah, I caught most of them. Like the average size was like sort of 37, so it was hard. And I had a 36 that actually weighed heavier than like a 38. So it was very sensitive on that side of things.
100%. But even so, you came in on the Saturday with 2.6, which was pretty solid. How about post-competition? Did you do much re-rigging and resetting or?
Yeah, so I have one rod. It's a Miller Rods Crank Freak in particular. So I thought I'd rig that up. It's not really designed for mussels, but it's a real soft rod. So I thought, well, I'll give myself best chance. I'll run quite a long leader and I'll run a real soft rod. So if they do pick it, I'm not going to pull hooks on too many.
Yeah, okay.
That was probably my main thing, going back.
Okay. What sort of leaders were you running for the comp?
6 pound. I don't normally run 6. I'm normally religiously 4 or even 3.
Yeah.
I don't know why. That's just me. I don't seem to lose too many in there unless you're fishing really gnarly bombies or structure.
Yeah, okay.
But yeah, 6 was fine. They were eating it fine. Yeah, 6 pound Olatorus, I think, is it called?
Yep. The one out of the Shimano, I think.
Yeah, that was what I was fishing.
Very cool. All right. Tell us about Sunday. How'd you go about catching your fish on the Sunday, and were they in the same spots?
Yeah, so Sunday I pulled up on the bank where I got the 40 straight up. Absolutely nothing, not a bite. So I was a little bit disheartened. I think for the first probably hour and a half, I didn't get any fish. I had one bite maybe. So I pedalled up to pretty much where I finished day one and was fishing the big mass, like the normal, the OG, and just nothing. I'm like, stuff it. So I put on a mini mass, the small one.
Oh, yeah. The little mass?
Yeah, the little mass, and in black and gold or black, didn't really matter. And I think in the first probably 30 casts, I would have had a bag and an upgrade, I think.
Wow.
So it was just that subtle change. And I think being a smaller lure too, the hookup rate was a lot better.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know what it was. I know the water was really clear, but yeah, I'm not sure what the difference was. They just wanted a smaller mussel on the second day.
Yeah, it's interesting. I wonder if that mussel had a hook on the hook point on the top of it. I wonder if that would make a difference.
I reckon, especially the bigger mussel, I think it probably would have made a difference.
Yeah, even if ran a W hook or something, just something on the top of it.
Yeah, even a little stinger probably, you'd probably get away with.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Because it sounds like if you're like doing a slow roll on a hop and they're not quite getting it, well, the hook's going to be on the bottom. So maybe that's got something to do with it.
Yeah.
Rather than getting them on the drop.
And that's what I thought too, because I just put it up to, if the master rolled over a rock or something, you give it a bit of slack line, it might have just rolled over and the hooks are facing up. And that was probably the reason why I was getting them. But obviously the little mass is a lot smaller, so there's a lot more hook compared to lure.
Yeah. And they'll be able to, if they sucking it in, they'll be able to lift it a bit easier. Like it would go in better.
Oh, 100%. And I had a couple.
How they're taking it.
And I had a couple on day 2 that just scoffed it.
Yeah.
I think I put an Instagram story up. And yeah, the typical both hooks in each side of the mouth sort of hook up like perfect.
Yeah, beautiful. All right. It sounds like you had your bag reasonably early with an upgrade. How'd the rest of the day play out?
Pretty consistent. I found one bank. It had a lot of small fish on it though, like 30 to 31 tippers. And I went up around this corner, this other bank that I got an upgrade off on day 1. And I think I caught one fish. And then straight after that, I didn't actually measure it, but it would have been 39, 40 tip. And Dylan was straight across the river and he's like, you've probably won it with that. I was like, I don't know. Because at that point, I still had like a 29 tipper in the well. So I was a bit skeptical. But that was at probably 10:30. And as the day went on, it got heaps better. I was talking to someone the other day, and there was a moon set around lunch or 1 o'clock, and so I think that's had a lot to do with it as well.
Yeah, that might have been it. I haven't got the bite periods in front of me, but it sounds like that was about right.
Yeah, and that sort of from like 11:30 onwards, it was pretty consistent. Every sort of 5 to 10 casts, you get a fish and whatnot.
Well, there you go. All right. You're able to back it up again with nearly, a similar bag. So 2.44, cracking the 5 kilos, which is pretty awesome, and putting you in first place. In terms of rods and lines and leaders, we've kind of gone through that with the 6 pound and swapping out. Did the change to the Miller rod, I can't remember which one it was, did that help, do you reckon?
It did. I found I only pulled hooks on one fish on day 2, purely because the mini muss, the smaller muss, has, I think they're size 16 trebles. They're quite small for what they are. So it was a real soft rod. It was almost bending at the grips at some point, but I'd just hook the fish and then pedal straight out. And I found you could put so much pressure on them without feeling like you were going to rip the hooks out of it.
Interesting. A good change overnight then.
Yeah. Not particularly a structure rod, but yeah, I feel like I could pull a lot harder on that than what I could on, say, a brawler, which is a stiffer rod made for structure. But I feel like, I would just rip the trebles straight out of their mouth. Yeah,
okay. And another discussion that I've had a couple of times recently is how hard you pull fish versus, sometimes, especially a black brim, they'll get the hook in their mouth, a lure in their mouth, and they'll just shake their head all the way up.
100%.
Won't go nuts.
Well, I find that, I fish Gippsland quite a bit, and I feel like they do that a lot more over there than what they do here.
Okay.
Here, I find sometimes they just pick it up and they're already on their bike. They're already going. Yeah, I feel like your window of pulling them out here is a lot smaller.
They're already running away with it.
Yeah, I feel like the window here is a lot smaller than what it is over there. Yeah, I've caught plenty of kilo fish over there, apart from some spots. But yeah, they just sit there and shake their head all the way to the surface.
Yeah, that's it. I'm not sure whether there's a couple of parts to that. Sometimes I think how much you pull them or what rod you're using can play a role. And equally, if there's a bunch of fish around them, they're probably going to be more likely to just run.
Yeah, and that's it too. It's hard to say if there was multiple fish. When I was fishing, purely just because there was an extra couple of foot of water, so you could see fish rolling, but you couldn't see, unless you had a live scope or whatnot, you couldn't see if there was multiple fish going on it.
Yeah, fair enough. All right. I reckon that covers the fishing pretty well, mate. So you ended up, I would say, reasonably comfortably in first place. What'd you get to take home for first place?
Actually, quite a whole swag of things, actually. I got a Hobie bag. I think it actually fits on the front of a PA, I believe. Not 100% sure.
Compass.
Yeah, that's the one. A fair few hurricanes, which I use a lot of hurricane plastics. I don't use a lot of hurricane hard bodies. But yeah, I've got a few now, so I will be definitely throwing them. I feel a lot of other Hobie accessories, the bag, I think, that goes on the back of the Vantage seat. So that'll be good. I'm looking at getting a new Outback shortly, so that'll be good.
Nice.
Couple of mussels as well. So I restocked the collection a bit, and yeah, bait junkies, pro lures, and yeah, a bit of other stuff.
Yeah, very nice. A decent pack. Now, I did ask the other anglers, you're the third one to be interviewed, how much money they took home, and they didn't know, but I've got a feeling you know.
Yeah, Lee actually emailed me yesterday. I think it was 800 and something, I believe, which is a quite good turnaround
nice.
There was only, I think there was 35 anglers in there. So
yeah, that's my take on it. Yeah, so that's a great weekend.
But yeah, I'm more stoked about an AC spot, to be honest.
100%. I don't remember seeing you at an AC. Have you been with one?
I have been to one, and I qualified, 4 years ago now, I reckon, at least. I qualified through the Nelson Hobie round. I actually come second.
Okay.
So I did that, and I think that was St. George's Basin.
Okay. Yeah, okay. I missed that one. Yeah, the one I think Chris Hickson won.
Yeah, it was, yeah. And then we had the ABT straight after, and VIC.
That's right.
But it was a bit of an eye-opener for me, because I actually borrowed my mate's kayak for this comp. Yeah, jumping. I think we actually had PAs that year, and yeah, it was the basin's huge, and I was just like, what the hell? Yep,
very good. All right, mate. Look, last thing before we shoot off, is there anyone you want to give a shout out to or say thank you to?
Mainly my wife. I don't have any sponsors. I used to have a few, but yeah, my wife. I think we got married the weekend before, and yeah, it was quite good of her to let me go fishing. So that's probably the only person I'd like to thank. Oh, and my mate Ryan for letting me use his kayak. He conveniently couldn't fish it, so that was good for me.
Very good, very good. All right, Kobe, mate, it's been a pleasure to have a chat to you. Good luck in the next rounds, and I hope to see you at the AC.
Yeah, that'd be quite good. No, it was a good chat and good to talk to you. Hopefully we can do it again.
Absolutely. Well, thank you, mate.
Cheers, mate. See ya.
Okay, so there it is. Here we are on a Thursday. I hope you enjoyed that. I can't wait to see. I'll be in at the Australian Open this afternoon to see what happens. So I can't wait to see who took that out. It's going to be awesome. And then we'll be getting straight into interviews from the Hawkesbury and the Australian Open. So look, thanks for tuning in. One last thing I forgot. If you're after a tournament shirt, I've still got a few left. $50 plus postage. You just got to shoot me a message and I will sort you out. Aside from that, thanks for tuning in, and I will talk to you next week on the Bream Fishing Project.
Thanks for listening. Hopefully you were informed, inspired and entertained. If you were able to learn something or just enjoyed listening, please consider subscribing and rate us on your favourite podcasting platform.